All right, Mr. Chairman, are you ready?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Superintendent Coleman.
Okay. Good morning, board members. It's nice to be with you. Very nice to be with you in person. So many of our meetings the last couple of years have been virtual, and it's always way better to be right here in person with you. I'm Superintendent Coleman, for those of you who are new to the board, and I'm also Superintendent Coleman for the returning members of the board, I guess. But the chair's asked me if I would just introduce our staff members who are here today. And you have at this end of the table, on the left is Carl Empey in the red tie, and he's our finance director. He runs all the business and does an amazing job with that. And next to him is Michelle Tanner, Dr. Michelle Tanner, who is the associate superintendent for the School for the Deaf. And next to Dr. Tanner is Superintendent Susan Patton, who's the associate superintendent of the School for the Blind. And really the four of us and a couple other folks like HR and communications and stuff, we're the cabinet for the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. So we have on our agenda, we have the first item today is a budget update. And then after that, we're going to go through a little kind of overview of USDB, especially for those who are new, but also as a refresher for everyone else who already is somewhat familiar with what we do. And so, Mr. Chairman, I guess it'd be okay to turn it over to
Absolutely.
Carl.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and board members. A special welcome to the new board members, and Happy New Year to all of you. I'm Carl Empey, the Finance Director for the Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. Just to give you a quick overview, our budget is around $51 million a year. We have just over about 600 plus employees. And the main source of our funding is the state of Utah. We get about $1 million from the federal government for Medicaid and the Child Nutrition Program. So each month we'll be presenting a financial report as to where we are year to date. And the report this morning is as of November, so the first 5 months of the fiscal year. The important part that I always like to start off with is we're financially solvent, which means we've got more revenues than we do expenses, and we have cash in the bank, which is very important to not only us as the Schools for the Deaf and the Blind, but you as the governing board for us and for the state and the state auditors. Our revenues for the first 5 months totaled, and I'm just going to round this up, and I'm not sure, Sybil, do you have these reports? Okay.
They're in the packets.
They're in backup, I believe.
Okay, if they're in the
Members have that.
backup. Let me just maybe make an offer. If any of you would like to sit down and have a little 101 course on the finances of USDB, I'd be more than happy to do that. But our revenues year to date for the first 5 months are $21.8 million. Our expenses were $18.5 million, leaving us a balance of $3.3 million. Now, the state sends us money every single month to cover our payroll. Payroll for us is about 80% of our total expenses. Transportation is the next biggest item, and we've been mandated that we have to pick up our students from their home, deliver them to school, and take them back to their home. And so it's a big expense for us. The number of students that we serve, let me get my glasses out because the numbers get a little bit smaller as the years go on. We're serving, and the students receiving service is 1,854, and the number of total students served is 3,921. Now, we have 3 funds that we receive money for. We receive from the Land State Grant Fund. We call it the Land Grant Enrichment Fund. We have a balance in there of just over $300,000 as of the end of November. We also have monies that residents donate to us to be used for various purposes. and that balance is roughly $254,000. And then we have a foundation, a 501c3 foundation, and that balance is just in excess of $1.06 million. And Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are about the finances. We still have the enrichment funds that we can talk about just right after that.
Any questions, board members? I wonder, maybe you could just briefly explain what the agency transfers revenue item is. That's somewhat unique.
Yeah, that is monies that we receive essentially from your office for the grants that we participate in. And so that is a large line item for us on our revenues as well.
Board Member Lear.
I was not the first in the queue,
Oh,
but
I'm sorry. Board Member, I'm flubbing this already. Board Member Davis was in first.
It's all good. Can you explain the difference between the funds that are donated from the residents and the foundation? I just, out of curiosity, why don't they contribute through the foundation? They just don't want the tax write-off, or thus the two different accounts?
That's a good question. The donated fund is within the Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. The foundation is a separate legal entity. And so donors can decide who they want to donate the money to. Like, for an example, we just received a donation for our interpreters. And so they wanted to be able to help us retain interpreters and be able to have monies to provide nice little things and amenities to the interpreters. So that falls more under the barrel of the donated funds under the Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. The foundation is being raised to be able to buy assisted technology devices that we don't receive funding for from the legislature. And so we'll have some of the big donors donating money into that. And we received just last year about $260,000 in donations into the foundation. Does that answer your question?
May I follow up?
Sure.
Yes. And all of the funds, though, go to benefit the USDB,
Absolutely.
correct?
Yes.
So I guess I just don't know the need for the two separate, if they all are going to benefit anyway, why those needs couldn't come through the foundation. But I will take this conversation offline.
Okay.
It's not a terribly burning issue. I was just curious
Right.
as to why you had those separate.
Well, and you also may remember, and I'll defer to Superintendent Coleman in just a minute, we also want to create an outdoor learning center, which the state wouldn't be able to provide the funds for that. So we would look to the foundation if they receive enough money. The projected cost is anywhere from $12 to $15 million for that. So the foundation would be the source of funding for a project like that. Okay.
I'll add
That's the question.
one other thing, too. At the time we started up the foundation, there were grants and private monies that kind of required it to be a private foundation instead of a government entity that they would donate to. And so that was really the main impetus. It qualified us for additional programs that we wouldn't donate to us otherwise. Generally, we encourage donations less than $5,000 to just go directly to the school, and anything larger goes into the foundation.
Thank you.
I think we had Member Lear and Member Bogus. Did I get those in the right order?
yes, and now I have another short question because of this discussion, and so you're saying they're all public, it's all public money, though, whichever once it's donated, it all becomes public money. Would you, do you
The money,
consider it that way?
the foundation is not public money, but when they give the money to us, it becomes public money. So technically, it's not, but we do all the accounting, we work with them, and the foundation has its own board, and they go out and beat the bushes for their donations from their circles. And so, am I correct in that, Carl, that it's a
Yes.
private foundation? But Utah law allows school districts and LEAs like ours to have a foundation that does this thing.
Okay,
that
it just
way.
seems like, and I haven't done tons of research into foundations, but it seems like quasi-public to me, at least. I'm just curious. That was just I'll I'll get more information next time. The other question really went back to the numbers of students that Carl gave. And I think you said there were 3,000 total students, is that right?
Well, number of students receiving services. So a student may receive multiple services from our audiology team.
Right.
And so in some ways, it's a kind of a duplicated count, but we just wanted to report how many students receive services that we provide.
And sort of goes to my question further, if I can just follow up a little bit, that not all of those 3,000 students are full-time students.
That is correct.
And so it's a blend of your full-time students and some that just get a few services from.
And
US.
also all the outreach students that are matriculated out to the school districts
Okay.
that we provide interpreters for and all the other related
Right,
services.
which might be a little or a lot,
Correct.
depending on the
Yes.
student. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Member Bogus and then Member Norton?
Awesome, thank you. I'm just wondering, what's your administrative and your instructional split on your HR output?
In terms of numbers or in terms of dollars?
Percentages is fine. I'm just wondering how that plays out in the end, like on your annual financial report.
We have a very small administration, so that number is pretty small compared to, the majority of our faculty is faculty and related service providers, the psychologists, the social workers, the audiologists, and so forth.
So you would consider all of those instructional output in terms of your budget?
Yes.
Okay, but you don't know the split?
I don't, I'll find that and get that out to you.
Thank you.
Does that answer the question, Member Bogus?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Member Norton?
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for the questions that have been asked. This is one that we've discussed before, but I wasn't quite clear on a term or a number, and so I'm asking, and I know that it's probably been stated, but excuse me. So just a second ago, you said that there are students that receive multiple services. When they ask about the 3,000 numbers, students that receive multiple services.
Yes.
In audiology especially. So do we count that as one student? Or if they receive 3 services, do we count that as like 3, not visits, but 3 services? Are we counting services or are we counting students?
We're counting services.
Okay. Whew. I'm going to remember, help me remember that. Services. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe just to follow up on that, in the backup chart, there's total students receiving services, 1854, total students served, 3921. Is that what
Yes,
Member Norton's talking about? Okay.
yes,
Total number of distinct, unique students receiving services is 1854, and the number of services those students receive is 3921.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Back to you, Superintendent, then?
Okay, thank you. The next, just to kind of wrap this up, we started tracking these things more recently, and I actually promised you last meeting that I would come with our key data report today. I think because of what we have, we'll push that till next month, but we're actually tracking both. We track number of services, students, and we've gotten very granular for the board, and so more to follow in February for sure on that in detail. Okay, so the main item on our agenda today is just to share an overview of USDB so that you're all familiar with it. I am a former member of the board, and when I was on the board, I've said this a lot of times before, I didn't even realize we were the governing board for Schools for the Deaf and the Blind for several months until they came in and did a presentation for us, and I leaned over to another board member sitting next to me. I said, "Why are they telling us their problems? Why don't they just have their board handle it?" And he goes, "We are their board." So anyway, I thought for those of you that are new to this, especially, it would be good to just give an overview so you know what's there. You can ask a lot more questions, and we're always available to you if you need it. So to start out, we have a 4-minute video that we made that kind of does an overview, and then we have 3 slides that we'll go through and just chat about that, and we can have a dialogue, so don't hesitate to interrupt if you want to. So, go ahead.
Sound's not working.
Comes Jerry.
Hey, if you were my desk staff, you'd be okay. Just saying.
Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind have met the needs of deaf, blind, and deaf-blind children for more than 130 years. In fact, it was established 12 years before Utah achieved statehood. The statewide program serves children from birth to age 22. From the past to the present, the schools have come a long way. The highly specialized professional educators implement best practices from around the world and award-winning state-of-the-art facilities. Innovative technology is used to help students achieve their highest individual potential.
Our kids need unique teaching, they need innovation, and we're able to deliver services to meet the unique needs of all of our students. From babies to teenagers, from farm areas to city areas. That is definitely one of the things that I love most about USCB.
There are many services the schools offer. The Parent-Infant Program helps parents and their children from birth to age 3. The program provides support to children and their families in their natural home environment. When the children grow older, they transfer to one of the campuses or into their local school district. The School for the Deaf celebrates all communication modalities and allows students to find the education that works best for them. Our teachers use advanced tools to improve instruction. Educators also have comprehensive audiological services that help diagnose every child's individual hearing needs. The School for the Blind implements academic curriculum in addition to specially designed instruction called the Expanded Core. We call it 9 More Than Core, and we're sharing these best practices with other schools across the country.
I am constantly inspired, and I'm constantly amazed and invigorated by the creativity of our teachers, by the ability of our students, and the support from the administration.
Utah is the only state which offers a deaf-blind endorsement. Those endorsed and dedicated educators go the extra mile to give students a well-rounded education using equipment, technology, and resources. The Enrichment Program provides our students with activities that allow parents and siblings the opportunity to be involved in their child's education. The Blind School offers a variety of specialized classroom and statewide instruction, including short-term programs, summer camps, and extracurricular activities throughout the year, like Goal Ball. The School for the Deaf provides after-school activities and opportunities for students to interact with other deaf peers. Imagine reading clinics, volleyball, basketball, drama, and more.
When you play basketball, all of the passing and the shooting. I enjoy volleyball as well, the back and forth, but I love moving around.
The STEP program provides residential training for students aged 16 through 21. This transition program helps students learn and practice real-life skills that will assist them in gaining independence and employment. Students also learn how to become contributing members of their community. We just shared a long list of life-changing programs, yet in everything we do, the focus at the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind is always to provide personalized education to meet the individual needs of each student and promote their development into educated, capable, and confident adults.
I've learned so much. All the different experiences have been amazing for me. I'm so excited to graduate because I get to go to college, pick up new skill sets, but of course I'm going to miss all of my friends.
All right, so, thanks. On our website, we have a lot of additional videos that we've made to describe each program, and if you're ever curious, you can go in there and just start browsing. We have a really good little communications team that over the past few years has done this. One of the things, when I was appointed as superintendent, one of the things the board told me is we're really concerned that the word isn't getting out about this being a resource for everyone in the state. You might have families out there that don't know their kids can benefit from all the resources and programs you have, and so we've made a strong effort over the last few years to get that done. I mentioned you being a governing board to us, and it's kind of an interesting thing because it's almost like you have to take off one cap and then put on, sometimes you're in like regulator mode as you're doing rules and everything, and then you have to be in caretaker mode for us and take care of these kids and go back and forth. But it only makes sense. There's really not another great way to assemble a board for USDB because it is a statewide organization. We actually report, of course, directly to you, but we also report annually directly to the legislature. Since, like Carl mentioned, the bulk of our funding comes in one line item appropriation to us. We don't have property taxes or WPU formula revenue like other school districts do. It wouldn't work. And part of that is because we are an LEA, so we operate like any school district would as far as following the board rules and the laws, but we have additional responsibilities. We provide professional development to the teachers in the districts that have students that have hearing loss or vision loss in their classes. We provide just outreach. I mean, we have teachers that drive around in southern Utah on the reservation. They might put as much time in driving as they do working with kids because the distances are so far. But one of the things that makes Utah awesome in this regard, not because of us, but whoever set this up before we even had statehood, is it's all together. And so every child, no matter where they live, should get what they need. And we balance that in, like you heard in the video, they talked about personalization, and that's a big buzzword in education right now. But at USDB, it's the only way we could do things. Even dividing kids into grade levels, you might have 4 or 6 kids in a grade level, but they're at 6 very different places. And so when we go to conferences and so forth, there's a few other states that have a school for the deaf and the blind together, which makes sense administratively. These are low incidence disabilities, and they're things that you can't expect every school district to have expertise in. So administratively, having it all under one umbrella, it's more efficient, but clearly the needs of the deaf and the blind are extremely different. And so we have highly specialized teachers that really can do what each child needs in that way. So let's see, in addition to school age, you saw we have the PIP program. PIP means Parent-Infant Program, and that's basically babies from 0 to 3. Our teachers go into their homes, and our mentors go into their homes. We also have after high school, after graduation, we have a post-high program where we do life skills for those students that need it, college prep and that kind of stuff. So we can serve kids all the way to age 22. And most of our educators are not on our campuses. We have 3 campuses, and soon we'll have a 4th small building in St. George. But we probably have 350 students on our campuses total. And as those of you that are familiar with special education, you will know that where a student is placed is a very specific decision by a team. So sometimes that means taking them out of their local school, especially, for example, if they use sign language. Learning through an interpreter is not optimal. But for others, they really need to be with their non-disabled peers and develop in that way. And so we follow all of the special ed rules and integrate with that just the way it was intended. Every student comes to us through their local school district. So parents don't just roll up on us and say, I want my kid in there. We go through that IEP process, and the local school districts are the gateway to us. So we collaborate with them and we work with them. And it's okay if the kids go back and forth. We follow their lead. Some years they might need to be with us. Other years we might need to serve them where they are. And so we're very flexible that way. And I guess really that's my little introduction. And now we have one slide for each of the schools: the School for the Deaf, which Superintendent Tanner will talk about, and then the School for the Blind with Superintendent Patton. So Michelle, go ahead.
Hi there. As you said, I'm Michelle Tanner. I have the pleasure and honor of serving in this role in this capacity at this time. And as you can see from the video, it is very meaningful work. It's a joy and a pleasure to work at the Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. And I am so fortunate that I made that decision a long time ago. It was the right decision to get into this field. And the kids are fantastic. I'd love to tell you more about them, and I don't want to overwhelm you. So I'm trying to give some background. So as Superintendent Coleman described, we have children, they find us at birth. They do early intervention screenings, and we find out a child has a hearing loss, and we go in and we provide services to the parents. That's usually typically once a week, but we also have a PIP program, you'll hear us say PIP. That means parent-infant program, and we also have what we call parent advisors. So they're going in there teaching the parents how to interact with their children. That's so key because the difference about the Schools for the Deaf and the Blind is these are sensory losses. The way you learn information, the way you gain access to the world is primarily through your eyes and your ears. And so there are some very unique interventions you have to make in order for that child to have equal access like other students do. And we start teaching those to the parents as soon as we find out of them. Sometimes they transfer in a little bit later and we don't find them till later, but Utah's really good at getting their early intervention screenings done. We have campus programs. For the School for the Deaf, that is a larger number than it is for the School for the Blind. The reason for that being is if you are a deaf child, that can often be very isolating, because if you're in a mainstream school where you're the only child that has a hearing loss with very unique needs, it can be very isolating, even if people are friendly. And typically the children are very friendly. But if you're saying, I'm trying to say, hey, I had this great movie I watched last night, it had this, this, and this, the other children don't develop language skills enough to have that interaction. They do have enough to say, hi, eat with me, sit here. But it's not the interaction you could get with another deaf peer that could say, hey, did you do Minecraft last night? We built this thing and built it really high and blah, blah, blah. Had some arguments with that where some kids have actually destroyed other people's Minecraft houses, which is apparently very traumatic. But they have those kind of conversations at school with one another. And then there's other kids who have more hearing and can hear better. And they actually crave the associations with other kids in their classrooms. And so they'll be in more of a mainstream environment. We'll provide assistive listening devices so they can hear their teacher better, because sometimes those rooms, the decibel level can get really loud. And it's really hard sometimes for one of my students to understand where the sound is coming from, who's talking. And if they don't capture that, they often will give up to the communication. So we put sound devices on them. In campus, we have a campus in Ogden. That was where, it was actually set up at the University of Utah when it was, a different name. And then when they gave out land, we got it before the state separated anything, and we were given land in Ogden. So we have our original campus that serves students from preschool up to the age of 22. We have residential housing up there for the kids that are older. We only include kids that are high school age. And it's not great for the little kids. They need to be with their families and mom and dads. And so we provide services out in their homes. In Salt Lake City, that is our largest campus. It's called the Jimoussou campus, or JMS, it's easier to say. And it's preschool to 22. It has 137 students as of today, and that's a large campus. In comparison to other state schools, oftentimes the other state schools will only have 137 kids for their state school, and that's just on one of our campuses. And that is primarily in American Sign Language. However, we also have listening and spoken language. If I was to say one of the things that I am most pleased with in this role that we've been able to accomplish here at USD is the ability of our educators who use what's called a listening and spoken language term. It's LSL, listening and spoken language, to teach the children, which these are the teachers that that are primarily working on hearing aids, audition, making the classroom sound environment, working on speech and articulation, and making sure all those are advancing well. And then we have, in the past, in other schools, they have it separated out where they're ASL students, students who use primarily sign language. And that's the mode of their communication. In this field, that has been a battleground, a absolute battleground. It's worse than the Hatfields and McCoys. It's been going on for thousands of years. And, but in the state of Utah, it's under the School for the Deaf. And I remember when I was assigned this role, I thought, oh boy, here we go. But we have made us work as a team. That took a long time. But now the teachers work collaboratively. I'm telling you, that's still unheard of across the United States. We work, whether a kid has listening and spoken language needs or sign language needs, we look at each other and say, this professional has value to my education. This professional has value to my education. And because of that, our children are able to advance in both areas. And there's no battle, because there shouldn't be a battle when it comes to children. So that is one of the greatest things we've got going. So when we say that the Jean Massou School, we're talking about not just the students that sign, but there are now listening and spoken language students that are there, and they're getting along famously, and the teachers are working collaboratively, and we've come a long way, baby. That's how I feel about it. Springville is our newer campus. It started a few years ago, and that one, because we'd already established the fact that we get along, they are already starting out with that mentality. And so we've got a lot of listening and spoken language students there, and students who sign. Primarily, there's more listening and spoken language students there. That school is growing each year. When we started out, it was pretty much pre-K through first grade, and now we've got, second grade, and now we've got a student that's in fifth. So we keep adding a grade level as they grow. There are other kids in the area that are older than fifth grade, but we don't have a classroom yet for them because we've got to grow into that. So we're serving them in their districts. St. George is another one we have, preschool through kinder. We've got a portable out there right now, and that area is growing enormously, as you probably already know. We've got lots of people that have moved in from out of other states. They're excited to be in St. George where the weather's nice, and we've had quite a few who's called and double-checked to make sure they have a program for a deaf child before they move there. Other things that are unique to the School for the Deaf, we have an online deaf school. The very first that was ever in the world. The American School for the Deaf started one that's it's paid, and it invites international students. We are focused primarily on only our state students at this point. Although we would love to see that grow, collaborate with other states. I would love to see that they have a fantastic math teacher that we could all take advantage of as a state, because it is a low incidence disability. So it'd be nice to see Schools for the Deaf supporting one another, but we have online coursework for our students because all the rest of the students in the state can take online coursework. So we wanted that to be available to us. And it's different for a deaf student because as much as we say it is not everything is as it should be. Captioning is not the answer for my students to have accessibility, because a lot of our students, my own children, would hear it. There's no sentence there, but they tell the little 3-year-old, the 4-year-old what to do, and the child does it. My students don't have at a young age access to that because they can't read yet. Captioning doesn't work. So we have interpreters that we put on, and we have unique ways of doing that. Audiology services is primarily the request I get from the districts about services they would like assistance with. We have 7 audiologists that go across the state and provide services across the state, plus we have more intensive services on our campus needs. They pull the kids and take care of things. But we offer that service. We have assistive listening devices. They go out, they set those up, they have to check in and make sure the hearing aids are working, all that kind of stuff. So that's a big deal. That also we also use that with early intervention. In the state of Utah, we also are responsible at the School for the Deaf for interpreting services. Again, something unique to Utah. So that's really hard in other states. If I am a school district and I have one deaf child, that interpreter is now reliant that that student will stay there. Because if they leave in the middle of the school year, that interpreter's just lost their job. Well, that's not a problem here at the School for the Deaf. We have needs. So we can reallocate that interpreter to another student. And typically, that child is transferred to another district, and we can just send the student. It's a very powerful model. It makes it so there's continuity of service and stability for the children and for the school districts. Lastly, the extracurricular activities, we've got a lot of opportunities that we give the students. if I was to say the biggest concern that keeps me up about our deaf students right now is social emotional health of our students. I know that's a big deal across the United States, but for the deaf students, a lot of my students can't go home and talk to mom and dad about the emotions that they're experiencing. Most parents can't communicate that deeply. And so it's really hard to express their concerns and needs and to talk with someone else. There are often parents who learn sign language that do a great job, but for the most part, a lot of children don't have that avenue. So we have to fill that need and that gap. So that's often done through our activities, our sports programs, our summer camps, our trips that we take on to teach them independent learning. We just have a myriad of activities. So if you would like to, I won't dig down on it. There's a little link in the presentation that was sent to you. You can look at the strategic plan, and we can focus on those if you'd like in presentations, but you can see primarily exactly what parts we are trying to improve upon, things we have achieved, and where we're going. And so if you're ever interested in that, you can click there, or we can present about it if you're interested. That's my presentation. I can turn it to Superintendent Patton, and then we can take questions at the end, probably, unless you want them now.
Member Bogus has a quick question,
So
or
you
or a
use
long question. Either one.
use the term audition, and I understand audiation, and I understand all these other terms, but I Googled it and it didn't help me. What is audition as opposed to trying out for something? Can you help me out with that?
Audition is understanding how to help you hear what's going on. It's putting the hearing aids on, making it adjust to the sounds. It's like glasses are actually too simplified in a way, but glasses, you can't wear my glasses. I can't wear yours. With hearing aids, some kids have cochlear implants, some kids have hearing aids. Audition is we make sure that we get those the right sound so that they're tuned. So if I can't hear the low frequencies, I can take sometimes on my programmable hearing aid and I can take them into larger frequencies. We can also do things in the room to make the sound better. So audition is the sound we're trying to capture for the child to help them get the optimal benefit, whether it's through their hearing aid, the cochlear implant, an assistive listening device that they listen to and they can hear the teacher. Or even, you can actually, in all honesty, padded walls are the best thing for my students because the reverberation of sound, it really absorbs the sound, so it makes it so they can hear better. So audition means hearing, listen.
Yeah.
Thank you for stopping me, because I throw
No,
out
I
terms.
just, that's one I hadn't heard before, but I love that you talked about the sound depression and frequency. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Associate Superintendent Patton,
Hello.
floor is yours. Thank you.
As Superintendent Coleman said, I'm Susan Patton, and I think you can feel the passion with Michelle and myself as far as with our school. We've both been here for a long time. I actually started out as a paraeducator at the School for the Deaf and the Blind, and then became a deafblind teacher and director of deafblind services, and now in this position. So I feel like both Michelle and I have a really deep understanding of both the School for the Deaf and the School for the Blind, the mission and what our purpose here is here. We are tasked with an extremely difficult responsibility, and that is to make sure that our students who, as Michelle said, have loss in their distant senses, which that's where we're getting most of our information, their needs are met educationally. And that does bleed over into family life. And as the video stated, for the School for the Blind, we have, we implement, and it's by law, federal law, that the expanded core curriculum is implemented, and for the school, for students with vision loss and who are deafblind, and that is 9 additional core areas in addition to the core curriculum that we're teaching to make sure that these students are leaving us for adulthood with the skills that is needed for a quality life and a productive life. So it's more than just academics, but yeah, academics is an extremely big focus. So as we stated earlier, we also have our parent-infant program. And we put the parent-infant program and our preschool program under one division just barely this last fall, and we're calling it our early childhood division. And I have to say that there have been a few bumps, but for the most part, it's been a really great marriage for the parent-infant program and the preschool program, because parents, it's a smoother transition into preschool. And parents are less nervous about that. They're not less nervous about putting their 3-year-old on a big old bus and sending them to school, because it's a nice marriage in between those two programs. We also have our campus program, which have kindergarten through post-high. We have our residences, as Michelle said, that are high school students and post-high students, and then our expanded core curriculum activities and our assistive technology. And those are all part of our campus program division. The assistive technology is where, as a state of Utah, in our larger districts, smaller districts, charter schools, we've surveyed teachers of the visually impaired and parents, and that's where the biggest need is training in assistive technology. And that's so that our students statewide can have access to their education. And that's not just teaching Braille, that's pieces of equipment that are put into classrooms. And these pieces of equipment are not cheap. You know, we're talking $6,000 or something for one piece of equipment. But if that student doesn't have that piece of equipment, they do not have access on a daily basis to their education. And as we all know, by law, we've got to make sure that that is happening. So we have an assistive technology team that we have really built up in the last couple of years that is a statewide service and is available to all districts statewide. We also have our outreach vision services, and these are students that are served in charter schools and in the larger LEAs and also in our smaller LEAs. And then we also have our orientation mobility services, which that includes things like cane travel. I mixed that whole thing up. Cane travel and teachers of O&M teachers. I would say our outreach program is our largest program. Our campus kids, as Michelle said, she has around 350 some odd kids. We only have between 50 and 60 students that are coming to our campus classrooms. The rest are outreach, and we have about 420 students that we're serving in outreach for vision services. Our deafblind services, Utah is a leader in the nation, and I had the opportunity of being the director of deafblind services and serving as an intervener and a teacher of the deafblind. So Utah is the only state who every student in the state of Utah who is identified with a vision and hearing loss receives services of a deafblind teacher. That is not the way it is in any other state, and that has been the way it's been since 1996, and we're extremely proud of deafblind services. Deafblind services has the teacher of the deafblind, but they also have interveners who are paraeducators that work one-on-one with the student to help that student access their education. So in lots of various ways, and we can provide more information on that. Then we have our educational support services, and those are our related services that we actually split that service. Michelle and I'm over nursing, OT-PT, adaptive PE, and Michelle has psychologists, speech therapists. Yeah, so we kind of, that director has to kind of go between both of us. But and then lastly, we have our Utah State Instructional Material Access Center, which is USIMAC. USIMAC is actually under the direction of USBE, so but the logistics, the personnel and whatnot is under USDB. So they also have a dual citizenship. I like that. And they are in charge of providing Braille and large print materials statewide. So, and I've listed our School for the Blind strategic plan. I wanted to talk about or just mention that I would say at the School for the Blind, our biggest challenge, which this is not new for anybody, is staff retention and gaining the right staff. We have a very difficult time in making sure that, number one, we have applicants for our teachers and our teaching positions. And number two, that they're licensed correctly, because they are very, very, they're experts in their field. The majority of them have teaching licenses and master's degrees. Our paraeducators are required also to know more than a paraeducator in a local school district might, because they are teaching Braille. They're involved with ASL. They're involved in things that are more specialized than just placing a paraeducator in a classroom. I would say that that is our number one challenge as far as an ongoing challenge. Of course, we have challenges that we meet every day, but I would say that that is our biggest challenge. Anyway, I have also attached the strategic plan at the bottom there. Each one of these divisions have their own school improvement plan that they update every year that has to support our strategic plan, which is a 5-year plan. And we're very calculated in how we do that, and it's data-driven. And I am more than happy, I welcome, really welcome the opportunity to explain that to you and to help you understand more of what the vision is for the School for the Blind. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions from board members? Member Green? You're on.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. I have a question about the ASL classes being offered in middle school and high school in some areas. I know I'm from Iron County and we have ASL classes in middle school. I'm not sure about our high schools. So I just wanted to know what your influence is there on introducing that as a career opportunity, classes that can be developed in those grade levels onto college, if there seems to be gaps between that process for kids and where you seem to find people that become interested in making this their career.
And we have a great deal of ASL teachers across the state. They're not under the School for the Deaf. They work for the districts and to provide classes. Oftentimes, they will seek a collaboration with us for an after-school activity so that their students can have an opportunity to utilize their American Sign Language. And we get excited about those kids going on. There's several of those students who do go on to get degrees in deaf education. So to teach in deaf education, you have to have a bachelor's in education, elementary, secondary, special ed, whatever it is you choose. And then you go on and get a master's degree in deaf education, which will include sign language, audition, things like that that we get to learn and beyond that. So we do. I actually haven't gone personally into those classes. They often reach out to us and want to show up in our classes. To be honest, I have to not allow that because there's so many classes and so many people using American Sign Language, my students become fish in a fishbowl. And so, and it impedes their learning to have 30 kids come into a classroom when there's only 5 of them in there. So we like and prefer that we collaborate in other ways after school. And so we'll do activities, fun things. Usually it's high school students, so there's dances. Graduation, they sometimes come to our graduation, or we'll just do fun activities. We have done some where we've gone on trips with some of those classes, things like that.
Thank you. Did that answer the question? Okay, any other questions from board members? Member Carey? Sorry, we should have helped you log in. It's on us.
District.
District numbers. Gotta watch Molly. She's.
Thank you.
Member Carey.
Yeah, Superintendent Coleman, and thank you. I just have to say that one of my first exposures to the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind was this past summer when your students were participating in the regatta and the boat race. And I remember looking at that and thinking, I wonder if these students are from the Schools of the Deaf or the School of the Blind. And then I read that, no, they're in one boat rowing together. And my daughter does crew, and I know that timing and coordination, it's difficult. And I just wanted to say that when I saw that, I mean, when you talk about the benefits that your school does and the good work, I'm just asking, is that a program that is reoccurring? Is that something you plan on doing? And what has that done for your school, that kind of participation in that kind of program? I think it was 70 miles.
It was.
Yeah, Superintendent Coleman.
Great question. So the answer is yes and no. That program, we did it 2 different years and learned some things, and we're taking that experience and we're modifying it to hopefully involve more students and to build on that. Now, we did have kids throughout the state, not just kids that are USDB students, but we think it was a big effort to go up to Puget Sound and go to Washington and all that. I think what we'll do is probably in the future do some shorter but similar experiences around the Intermountain West. And so that hopefully we bring more people in. But that's all in the brainstorm mode now. Now we're taking what we learned, and now we're going to kind of process it with the families and our staff this year and see where we come out. So more to follow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Coleman. Superintendent Coleman, anybody else, questions? Comments? I was going to mention the regatta for those that are new. That was a heck of an experience. It was, almost kind of Shackletonian with the rain and the dark and, and I think it just epitomized how USDB, identifies and builds capacity in these kids with challenges. And we talked a lot about it, but even then it wasn't enough. It was just it epitomized the work that you do in a very visual way. So we appreciate the sharing it and the inspiration that came. Member Davis? Or did you, was it, oh, I'm sorry, Member Wood. Sorry.
No, but I love the Shackletonian. Shackleton reference.
Yeah.
I
Right
just
up
want to
there.
thank you for the work that you do. I have a deaf sister. At age 3, I remember sitting in front of the brick building in Ogden while my parents went in and collected the caption machine, the TTY, so that we would be able to make phone calls. I'm watching the progress from that time. I'm now in my 50s, so I've watched 40 years of the progress of this school. And thank you for the continued work you do and for the support of families outside of this, the campus. So amazing for what you have there. So thank you.
Thank you, board members, and thank you, Superintendent Coleman and Susan and Michelle. If I can go to first names, we appreciate your reports and input. Anything further?
Real quick, just as a superintendent report, as the last item on our agenda, I just wanted to update you quickly on the buildings that we have. The legislature appropriated money last year for us contingent upon us doing a little bit more of a deep dive. And so we've been meeting with the legislative auditors who are doing a space study of our needs. And then we're working with board leadership right now to find ways to kind of just integrate with the board and to communicate better than we have in the past, always looking for ways to do better. And so we're going to meet, I think, this next month, and we'll have more to report to you on that. So we want to respect all the things you have to do as state board members while still allowing you to do your fiduciary duty of really knowing what's going on and overseeing what we do. So anyway, that's our report today.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Probably a good time for a 5-minute break.